guys, happy May and happy EDS Awareness Month. My name is Chronically Jenny and this is my 5th annual series of EDS and HSD Awareness Month videos. Ehlers-Danlos syndromes and hypermobility spectrum disorders are a collection of connective tissue disorders, and like every year I have gathered together people from across the world with different types of EDS to talk to you about how this rarely recognised condition affects them on a daily basis. If you want to find out a little bit more about EDS first, there is plenty of content on my channel to help you do that, as well as on my Instagram. But today we are going to be talking about the worst symptoms of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Because Ehlers-Danlos syndromes are connective tissue disorders, it means that they can affect every system in the body, meaning that the symptoms can be relentless and widespread. Just as one symptom like dislocations calms down, another one like GI issues might flare right up. Many of the symptoms of Ehlers-Danlos syndromes and hypermobility spectrum disorder are invisible, which often means they are disbelieved or misunderstood. Please, please listen and believe, because no matter how a person looks, they can be in incredible pain. Here's my amazing dazzle of zebras telling us about their worst symptoms.
The worst symptom of EDS for me directly is joint dislocation and subluxation. My shoulders tend to slouch out of place and dislocate. My wrist will fully dislocate right in that joint. My knees will fully dislocate and subplex, and my hips will subplex. They've never fully dislocated, thank goodness.
The worst symptom of EDS that I personally experience is the pain. The chronic joint pain that is severe, that just never lets up, that there isn't a specific targeted way to treat, and then the pain from the dislocations, the pain from the injuries that are reoccurring. It just seems to be pain on pain sometimes, and that is definitely the hardest part to live with.
Para mí, los peores síntomas es el dolor y la fatiga crónica que llegan a ser incapacitantes en nuestra vida laboral, académica y social, e incluso en actividades simples de la vida diaria, lo cual puede llegar a impactar nuestra salud mental.
The worst EDS symptom I have, well, I've had a few. Growing up, it was terrible migraines that I would have every day, followed by, I put chronic pain in my muscular system, second, and most recently, mast cell activation syndrome, which caused so many problems with my digestion, with my bladder, that kind of went on and on for several years before it became under control. So that has been my most debilitating symptom recently.
Nel 2012 ho avuto una gastroparesi, che fortunatamente sono riuscito a risolvere. È stato un anno davvero difficile in cui ho perso 20 kg, perché non riuscivo a mangiare. Piano piano, seguendo i consigli dello specialista, ho riabituato lo stomaco ad accettare il cibo. E a fine 2012 sono riuscito a fare dei pasti leggeri quasi normali. Gli strascichi sono stati molti e sono durati alcuni anni. Ora sto bene, ma la digestione è rallentata e devo comunque fare attenzione ad alcuni cibi.
The worst symptom of EDS for me, besides pain, is probably fatigue. And that's not just me being really tired, although of course I get that. It's more for me the muscle fatigue. So for example, if I'm going upstairs, I'll start off reasonably well and then I'll get a few steps up, but my muscles are so tired and fatigued that I just kind of slow down, and that can be quite frustrating because I know what I want to do, but my body just gets so tired so quickly that everything slows down.
And I would say that the worst symptom I get is fatigue. If you asked me to rank it on a day-to-day basis, I would say that my pain is worse. However, I find my fatigue more disabling because of other people's reactions to it. If I tell someone that my legs hurt, they're understanding, they let me sit down and take a rest. If I tell someone that I'm tired, they don't get that. They think it's the same type of tired as they experience, and it's just not the same thing, and I can't explain that to someone who hasn't experienced it. There's also many things that you can do to help with pain. There's so many ways that you can help mitigate it, or never take it away but help it a little bit. There's no way out through fatigue, you just have to go through.
So the worst symptoms that I experience with vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome would be fatigue, brain fog, joint soreness. They're the main ones until I have an event, and then those events can then lead on to more serious symptoms.
The worst symptoms for me are the dislocations, subluxations, when I get it in a new area. For example, my knees and my ankles are the latest to be affected. That can be very frustrating, trying to work out the best solution to help support those joints that don't want to stay in place.
My worst symptom of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is pain, and that was also the first symptom that led me to seek a diagnosis. I experience joint pain, especially when it comes to instability and subluxations, but I also experience generalized pain throughout my body. I'm lucky enough that it usually isn't severe, but it's a daily occurrence that I live with. And then, like many people, I'll also have pain flares where either in one of my joints or throughout my entire body, the amount of pain I'm in will spike significantly. And that can have to do with a lot of things, including stress or even a change in the weather.
EDS is variable, which means there are better days and awful days too. Some symptoms that I have are migraines, difficulty eating, lots of allergies, and heart problems. For example, quickly feeling dizzy and fainting.
My worst symptom of EDS is probably the joint pain that I experience from my hypermobility. I experience hypermobility in all of the major joints, such as my shoulders, my wrists, my knees, and my ankles, but probably the worst is my shoulder. This subluxes on average about 10 to 15 times a day and means that I am in constant pain. I also find it really difficult to do daily tasks, such as lifting up a bag or lifting up the kettle to pour water, and I've had to really adapt how I live to be able to deal with this symptom.
The worst symptom I have from EDS is chronic pain. It's constant, it never goes away, and it affects all aspects of my life.
Chronic pain and chronic fatigue. These are for me equally as worse, since the combination of them prevent me a lot from doing things in daily life I would love to do more or better or even be able to do. So for me, those are really the worst.
So the worst symptom that I would say that I experience of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is subluxations. For me, they occur in basically every joint and can be really unpredictable and hugely limit mobility on a regular basis. Probably the worst one I'd say is neck instability, so atlantoaxial instability, which can cause a huge myriad of symptoms from kind of like pressure, headache and migraine type symptoms, and can be triggered by like the simplest movements or physical activity, so literally just like turning my head left or right, bending forward, bending down, kind of jumping or anything physical and high impact, of course. So that really affects things on a daily basis. Also, my coccyx is super hypermobile. It literally wiggles, and my hips come out a lot as well. So I always have to sit on a special cushion, I'll show you now, to really alleviate inflammation and pain in that area. And yeah, they're probably like the worst symptoms of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome that I experience.
For me, I think the symptom that has been the worst that I've ever experienced, which is kind of linked to EDS, was my headaches from my CSF leak. Headaches are rough generally with EDS, but when it's caused by a leak, they are extreme. Literally all I could do when I had my leak was scream and cry and just wait for the headaches to stop, because the pain is just that intense. And as someone who lives with chronic pain all over their body every day, it takes quite something to make that happen. My CSF leak was caused by my EDS because everything in my body is a bit stretchy, so the layer around my brain was a bit too stretchy and had a tear. And that's how I kind of got diagnosed with EDS in the first place, so wasn't a great start.
My worst symptom for EDS is probably the internal ones. I've recently had another prolapse. I've had a bowel prolapse before, and then I've had a cervical prolapse now. That was extremely painful, very annoying, and also really impacted my quality of life. So the symptoms that you can't see are often the things that impact you most.
Probably my dysautonomia. The unusual presentation I have is that I get 19,000 premature ventricular contractions of the heart a day. What that means is that every time I have one of those, so about 1/5 of the time, my heartbeat gets cancelled out by an extra signal from my brain to my heart, and my heart doesn't beat. This means I spend a lot of time lightheaded. I have a lot of floor days. I really have to manage my energy and time around what parts of the days I'm the most symptomatic, when I'm feeling the most symptomatic, etc. Because I can be carrying on a perfectly normal conversation with you and then suddenly be dead because my heart hasn't beat for several seconds. It means that almost all of the time that I'm doing anything, I'm lightheaded. Most of the time that I'm doing something, I'm dizzy or nauseated. And it's so much worse in the morning than it is in the afternoon that I essentially can't work in the morning. I can't get out of bed for at least an hour. I can't stand for several hours in the morning. Yeah, it takes a lot of management. That's my most invasive symptom by far. I am on heart medication to try to control it, but you can see how well that's going.
The worst symptom of EDS that I've experienced would probably have to be the instability of joints, in particular my spine. At the age of 18, I ended up needing a major spinal fusion to stabilize my skull and upper cervical spine because it was causing brain and brainstem compression.
Well, it's kind of twofold. It would be the pain because it's constant, like that just doesn't stop. No matter what smile that I put on my face, no matter what colour wig I put on, the pain doesn't end. No matter what painkillers that I take, it's just a constant thing. But also the frequent subluxations and dislocations, and yeah, basically just not being able to trust my body to do what it needs to do. My knees especially slip out of place an awful lot, and that's really damaging to me. It just makes things a lot more difficult. Like simple things like just walking from one room to the next is really difficult for me. Yeah, so I would definitely say the pain and the frequent slipping out of the joints.
The dislocations and the chronic pain, because like there are days that I cannot get out of bed and stuff.
I've got a few different ones, but probably the absolute worst for me at the moment is tiredness. I feel tired all the time, which is really frustrating, and also pain as well. But for me, the tiredness can feel so chronic and overwhelming that's kind of the thing that I'm struggling with the most at the moment. And obviously pain makes me tired, and so like it's like just a whole circle that you feel like you can't really get out of.
When I was younger, my worst symptom was my patellar dislocations. I've had 7 dislocations so far, and each one took 6 months to a year to recover from. One doctor said my dislocations were as bad as if I'd been in a motorcycle accident. Eventually, they operated on my right knee, but they did refuse to operate on my left knee, so I use this brace every single day. And touch wood, I haven't had a dislocation for a few years now. Because of that, my worst symptom today is my gastrointestinal issues. I have to limit gluten, garlic and onion from my diet to try and stop all the problems that I get.
What's the worst thing about my condition? Probably the fatigue and being tired constantly all the time. I'm sort of used to a bit of the pain in my joints and stuff like that. But being tired and fatigued is quite draining. You're tired from being tired.
My worst symptoms of hypermobility are dislocations and skin sensitivity. It can cause me to develop allergies, like to adhesives, I also deal with pretty severe dislocations. My shoulder dislocates on a regular basis, and so do my hips and my fingers.
The worst symptom that I get with my EDS kind of varies, I think, on a sort of day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. So it's kind of difficult to give one answer. I would say fatigue is definitely one of the symptoms that I find the most difficult to cope with, because there's just not really any treatment out there, and even sort of the management techniques just don't get rid of that fatigue, and sometimes it's just debilitating. I would say my digestive symptoms cause me a lot of issues and make life quite difficult, because you have to eat, you can't just stop eating, and so, you know, I can't avoid the thing that is making me feel ill. Pain, like joint pain and like subluxations, can cause me a lot of issues. Bladder issues. It's really difficult, I think, to say one like symptom is the worst, because EDS just likes to give you a whole host of symptoms, and some are worse on one day, whereas another one might be worse on another day.
One important thing to remember about the worst symptoms of living with Ehlers-Danlos syndromes or hypermobile spectrum disorder is the fact that many of these symptoms are completely invisible. So please remember that just by looking at someone, you cannot tell the level of pain they are experiencing, or any other symptoms for that matter. Thank you so much for watching. If you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, I would love it if you'd hit subscribe. I'll see you very soon for another EDS Awareness Month video. Spoons and love.